Let's start with Trump's drooping face. What's that all about?
Well, we don't know what it's all about. I mean, there's no question that it was noticeable on Thursday when he was attending the September the 11th commemorations at the Pentagon, sitting alongside Melania Trump. It was an early morning engagement for the president. He may simply have been exhausted. He may have been emotionally struck by the sentiments that were being expressed at that 9/11 commemoration. I mean, of course, it was a very serious event, and he also was still reeling from the assassination the previous day of his good friend Charlie Kirk. So there are a variety of different possible explanations, but there are concerns that the White House has not yet fully explained the state of his health. We have seen physicians' reports every time he's had routine physicals that pay tribute to his unparalleled strength. He's got the stamina of a gazelle. He's more than equal to the task of being president of the United States. But some medical experts look at that picture and they see evidence of someone who has possibly had mini strokes. And there are other things going on. I mean, more obvious on a daily basis now is the efforts that he takes to conceal from camera view and public view the back of his right hand, which, as you know, has been bruised and is covered up with makeup on a daily basis. But now when he sits in the Oval Office, and if you watch the statement that he made on Wednesday night following the killing of Charlie Kirk, he keeps his left hand firmly affixed on top of his right hand, and he did that the other day at another event in the Oval Office when he had cameras in, and quite a lengthy event. And unless the hand is down beneath the desk so you can't see it, if it's up, he conceals it with his left hand. And they've waved away questions about it and said, well, it's just because he shakes so many hands that he's got this bruising on the back of his hand. But there are definitely questions mounting up. And because, of course, of the experience of the Biden administration, where there was undoubtedly a cover-up of the president's declining health by top figures within his inner circle, because of that, there is less ability for the White House to sort of just wave all this stuff away. And I think eventually they are going to have to provide some sort of an explanation as to what's taking place.
I mean, obviously, we watch that hand and we watch his health very closely, especially because, you know, we haven't been told what's actually going on. And I remember previous presidents like George W. Bush, when he had, you know, I think it was a gallstone, we had, you know, replicas of his innards in plastic effigies on the stage at the White House briefing room. That hasn't happened, apart from these rather cursory reassurances that he's got the stamina of a gazelle, if not the figure of one. But I just wonder what the American public makes of his health.
Well, I mean, there's chatter on social media. I mean, honestly, there's so much going on. There are so many other stories. There are so many distractions that the White House has used to shift the narrative away, for example, from the Jeffrey Epstein story, that their ability to shift the focus away from the president's health, which is a slightly percussive drumbeat in the background, but it certainly isn't on the front burner in terms of issues that the vast majority of people are discussing, has so far been successful. But the more we see imagery like we witnessed on Thursday, particularly of that drooping face, the more questions are being asked. Is he suffering from any kind of a Bell's palsy? Well, when he stands up and makes a speech, it doesn't look like he is. But, you know, I'm not a doctor, and the White House has an entire medical team and the Naval Hospital up in Bethesda that is at their disposal. And so, you know, I think this is a story that we have to keep an eye on. And at some point, that pressure on the White House to provide an explanation is going to become, I think, insurmountable.
I'm just looking at a YouGov poll here, and it does show that actually there is increasing concern about the state of his health and his age. 80% of Democrats say that Trump is too old to be president. 53%, no, not surprising, 53% of independents say the same. Only 30% of Republicans. Sorry, only 13% of Republicans. So it's, again, like everything else, it splits along partisan lines.
But worth making the point briefly, Matt, that 80% of Democrats who did not think that Joe Biden was too old to serve in office until 86 now think that at 79 Donald Trump's got to go.
Oh, completely. I mean, it's a bit rich of them to say that. But and whatever you say about Trump's health, he at least sounds relatively youthful, as if the synapses are connecting. That was not the case with Joe Biden. Okay, let's move on. The Charlie Kirk thing, which we've been talking about a lot this morning, I find it absolutely fascinating. I mean, it's a terrible tragedy. It happened in the worst possible circumstances, especially for his family. But the language, that he used himself when he was still alive, the language that has been used by people mourning his death, is extraordinary. And I wonder if you think that some of the sort of calls for revenge and retribution have died down ever since we actually found out the identity and possibly the motive of the suspected killer.
Well, certainly some of the calls have died down, but not all of them. I mean, if you've followed what Donald Trump has been saying relentlessly, and I know you have, relentlessly, he's been talking about the radical left being responsible for all of this and insisting that he's going to go after them. And his deputy White House chief of staff and sort of unofficial chief ideologue, Stephen Miller, last night on Fox, was again insisting that there basically needs to be a witch hunt to find the supporters, organisers and funders of the radical left, whom he described a couple of weeks ago before Charlie Kirk's killing as a domestic extremist organisation. That was the Democratic Party that he was talking about. Now, I do think that a lot is going to hinge on what we learn about Tyler Robinson's motivations for this assault, because we still don't fully understand, don't come close to understanding his politics. Some of his schoolmates say that he was to the left. Other people are speculating based on a variety of different evidentiary examples that he may be from the far right. And there certainly were figures on the far right, including the white supremacist Nick Fuentes, who had broken with Charlie Kirk because they thought that he was too pro-Israel and that he was insufficintly undiluted in the ideology that he was presenting as a true Christian conservative acolyte. So I think that a lot of this is going to hinge on the motivation that Tyler Robinson had. The most eloquent efforts to damp down the rhetoric came yesterday from Spencer Cox, the Republican governor of Utah. But whether that the White House is open to receiving that message, I think is very unclear. And we're heading into dangerous terrain, because if you've got Stephen Miller and Donald Trump talking about rooting out the radical left, I mean, that very quickly can become a cipher for going after the Democratic Party. And if you take the logic of what Stephen Miller is saying to its logical conclusion, he's talking about ultimately potentially proscribing the Democratic Party as an extremist organization. And that takes us down a really dangerous road for democracy here.
You bet. I mean, one of the engravings on the shell casings that the police found with the abandoned murder weapon was "Hey fascist, catch."
Yes.
Which I think is a reference to a video game that's been interpreted as a kind of satire of fascism, or maybe he just thought that Kirk was a fascist. Kirk would obviously have denied that, and as do people who support him. There was another one, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, 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 which is from Money Heist. It's an Italian partisan, communist partisan song. I mean, again, it all seems quite juvenile, doesn't it?
Yes, but I mean, it's also important, I think, to underscore that the temperature here is so hot. I mean, this atmosphere is now so febrile, and the notion that investigators simply are not given any time, never mind by members of the public, by elected politicians, by appointed members of Donald Trump's administration, by the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, to engage in an investigation that Donald Trump, the night that Charlie Kirk was killed, even as the manhunt for the assassin was taking place, was blaming all of this on the radical left when there was no evidence at all to support that claim. And by the way, completely ignoring political violence that has been targeted at Democrat lawmakers in Minnesota, for example, back in June. It shows you how far the rhetoric in this country has shifted, how far we've drifted from our traditional moorings here.
You said it. And as the head of the FBI said yesterday, see you in Valhalla. Or let's make that the coffee shop across the road in Washington. Simon Marks, thank you very much indeed.